You want to change your bar tape. There are several different methods out there, but in all my years and experience of wrapping tape, this is the best general method. Now, as you get more experienced, you may want to tweak and change a few things so that you can better set up your bike for your specific needs. But as a general method, this is the best one to go with. And it's just one of several maintenance jobs that's featured in how-to guides in our Essential Road Bike Maintenance book, available from shop.global cycling network. A useful book to have. Let's get to it. For this job, you'll want some new bar tape, some electrical tape, and some cutting device, either a knife or some scissors. Start by removing your previous tape. Begin at the tops and work your way down to the drops. With the tape removed, this gives you a good opportunity to inspect the handlebar for any damage that's been hiding underneath the tape. You can also clean it at this stage and see that the cable outers are okay. You might want to change the cable outers with your bar tape removed too. Removing your tape also gives you a good opportunity to adjust your lever position if you're not happy with it. With the tape removed, peel back the shifter hoods so that you can wrap underneath them. Take some electrical tape and then cut it to length and secure it onto the top tube. It's easier to cut this beforehand so that it's ready for when you need it later on. Take a roll of your new tape and we're going to begin by wrapping from the bottom of the drop up to the top of the hood. Now, the direction that you wrap in is super important. On the right side drop, we want to wrap clockwise from the rider's perspective. This is because when your hand is on the drop, it pulls that way. If the tape was wrapped anti-clockwise, then it would loosen over time as the rider's hand pulls. On the left-hand side, this is reversed because the rider's hand will pull to the left, which means we want an anti-clockwise wrap and not a clockwise wrap. So you'll go around like this, anti-clockwise. On the tops of the handlebars, we're going to wrap in the same direction on both sides. This is because when your hands are on the tops, riders have a tendency to pull back, especially as they're climbing. So we want to wrap in the direction that the hands are pulling. So this way, towards the rider. For conventional bar end plugs or bar bungs, it's pretty straightforward. You begin wrapping the drop of the bar, but leave some tape overhanging off the end of the drop. And then when you insert the bar end plug, you push this overhanging tape inside the bar end. And this will secure it. If you leave too much tape hanging off the end of the bar end, or if you're using particularly thick bar tape, you may struggle to insert the bar end plug. If that's the case, then simply get some scissors and trim it down, or you can also use a mallet to encourage it into the bar end a bit more. Some bar end plugs are the screw-in type, or you might have a Di2 junction box bar end plug, such as on my bike here. If you have this, it requires a slightly different technique. You don't wrap just straight onto the edge of the bar end plug, like so, up to the edge, because as you then start to wrap, what you're going to do is get a bulge at the end, which is unsightly and not very neat. So instead, what we do is we begin wrapping at an angle with some overlapping over the end of the junction box or bar end plug. Begin the wrap with a few revolutions around the bottom of the bar, making sure you're keeping it tight. And then what we're going to do is take our knife or scissors, or you could use a pen, and we're going to mark where the junction box is so that we can then cut the tape at an angle . Keep wrapping until you get to the bottom of the shifter. As you wrap, make sure you pay close attention to both sides, inspecting it as you go so that you don't have any gaps. If you do have a gap in your bar tape or a bit that you're not happy with, simply unwrap it and rewrap it again. Now, the trickiest part of the job is how you wrap around the hoods. Now, traditionally, this has been done in what's known as a figure of 8 pattern. However, I'm not going to show you that. I'm not going to suggest you do it, because with modern bar tapes, which are quite thick, it adds a lot of bulk around the hoods and makes them less comfortable. It wasn't a problem back in the day when riders used to use very thin cotton tapes on older retro bikes, and that's where that method comes from. However, we're going to show you something that uses less tape, is less bulky, and crucially makes sure that you have the correct orientation of your bar tape when you get onto the tops, so that your tops aren't going to loosen over time. Instead, what we're going to do is wrap again from underneath, keeping sure the tape is tight. We're then going to go over the top, back under, and then continue wrapping the top. And crucially, we are now wrapping in a direction that is advantageous for the top section of the bar, because it's in the same direction that the load is going to be, where you're pulling back with your hands so the tape doesn't loosen over time. Now, the disadvantage with what we've just done is that when I pull the shifter hood back into position, you can see we have a slight gap there. Now, you can leave that if you want, if you're not bothered by that, but some people find that unsightly. So the solution to that is to use one of the covering pieces that comes with your bar tape. So we're going to put that in place as we wrap. The covering piece goes here, and then you wrap over the top of it. As it comes though, it's too long, so we're going to trim that down to size so that it's the right length and it's not covering any of the little lug holes that these lugs on the shifter hood go into. Holding the covering piece in place, we're going to repeat what we just did, wrapping under the hood one more time over the top, and then begin wrapping the top section. When we get to the shifter on the left-hand side of the handlebar, we're going to take our piece of covering tape again. It's optional, but like I said, I like to cover the little gaps so you don't have them. We're going to hold that in place, and then we're going to wrap around right up until the bottom of the shifter, and then we're going to come underneath it to the inside, and then we're going to come up and over and round over the top. And that way, as I continue pulling it tight to wrap around the rest of the bar, we're wrapping this way round so that it's going to be in the direction that I'm pulling and gripping with my hands, so it doesn't come undone. From here, you can pull the shifter hood back into position to check everything is how you want it and covered up, and this helps secure the bar tape so that then you can continue wrapping the top section. When you wrap the top section, how far you go is up to you. Some people wrap all the way to the stem, some people don't wrap much at all and like to keep their tops covered. Other bars, such as this one, have an indentation mark as to where they recommend you wrap the bar. So I'm going to wrap the bar to there, and that's where we're going to finish it. Where you reach the point where you want to stop the wrap, to make it look really neat and pro and have a straight edge, wrap past the point where you want it, keeping it at the angle that you're wrapping at, and then take a knife or a pen or something you can use to mark the tape, and then mark it straight. So we've marked it, and we're going to cut along this length here, so I'm just going to mark it with my knife. With the tape cut at an angle, you can see you have a really neat straight edge of where the bar tape finishes. Another top tip is to have the tape finish underneath the bar where it's out of sight. We then take our easy to reach electrical tape off the top tube, and again we wrap that around. Now there's a couple of little nuances to this. So we're just wrapping around that bottom edge, not pulling it too tight to distort the tape. And if you want to keep it super neat, what you can do is just wrap onto the tape as I've done here. Now, as you wrap the tape around, a couple of revolutions should be sufficient. And then we're going to finish the tape on the underside of the bar. Again, finishing it on the underside just makes everything look much neater because you don't have an unsightly seam on the top. Handlebar tape often comes with little strips of finishing tape, but in my experience, while this looks quite pretty, it often doesn't have as much hold and isn't quite as sticky or as effective as just good old electrician's electrical tape. So if you want to use your finishing tape, what I'd suggest you do is use some electrical tape on there first and then just put the finishing tape with the logos on it on top of that as a kind of like decorative thing. Now, a final little pro tip to make your bar tape extra secure that I learnt from Calvin at Park Tool is to just take a little metal object like this Park Tool pick, heat it up, which I'm doing with a lighter, and then what we're going to do when that's got nice and hot is we're going to use that to just tack weld the tape on the bottom edge just so that it doesn't come undone. So there we go, all wrapped. Feels really nice, that actually. It's nice and gelled, that tape. So like I said, there are other methods and techniques, but this is the one that I found to be the best all-round method. I hope you found it useful, and there were lots of little tips and tricks in here to help you wrap your bars better. Of course, feel free to tweak this and do whatever you like, and let us know in the comments if you've got any suggestions of how to make this better. But I hope you found it useful. If you have, make sure you like the vid, and also consider helping and supporting the channel and what we do by subscribing, because I know a lot of you have subscribed, but plenty of you haven't. So that would be great. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one. Love you. Bye.